15-year pension.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Little. I have a couple questions about this.
Could you just state your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Sharon. I'm new at this.
No, just state your name.
My name is John Yakim,
Thank you.
and I forgot. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Same to you.
Thank you.
What is the purpose of this ordinance? Why are we doing this?
We have unanticipated expenses come in. The biggest one is the payback of refund of taxes from the assessment appeals and the increase in health benefits. Those are the two big lion's share. So in order to free up money going into the first quarter of the year, just to be on a precautionary, what we're going to do is not make the transfer into the OPEB money of $1 million. So that frees that up right there, that we don't have to make that transfer in there. So our cash flow will be on a cautionary, on a buffering stage going into the first quarter. Because March 31st is the lowest trough period in any municipality in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we just want to make sure that we're okay moving ahead into the first quarter.
Okay, now, I understand moving and not moving because of cash flow purposes. So are you suggesting that come March 31st, April 1st, April 15th, this will then get moved? Or is this money being unallocated to the 2014 OPEB payment?
It is being unallocated, period.
Okay, so in other words, the money's been spent, and now we just need to make sure we don't have enough.
Well, not a full million, John, not a full
Okay.
million. I mean, we have about a little over $600,000 in unbudgeted expenses. It's not a full million.
Okay, but we're moving $1 million.
But we're exactly.
Okay, why the extra 400,000?
Well, because that's what's going to be, that's what's budgeted for the OPEB. And I want to be on the safe side when we're moving into the first quarter.
Okay, so that 400,000, will that be put into OPEB after the cash flow crunch is over, or not?
No, because in the 15 budget, we're budgeted to put in there $1 million
But we
going
were
into the
budgeted for
15
this year,
budget.
too.
Well, it'll just go, what happens is, this is a whole year's process, John. All right, you start out January 1st, 2014, okay? And you come all the way through here, and what this does is this lowers the fund balance coming up at the end of the month right now than what we had anticipated being.
Okay.
So the extra $400,000 that you're talking about, that's going to increase the fund balance moving through. All
The
right?
general fund balance.
The general fund balance,
Correct,
exactly.
but it was budgeted to help go pay down this OPEB, which is a future liability.
Correct.
And that was one of the reasons why we had two huge back-to-back tax increases, essentially doubling our real estate taxes.
No, I wouldn't.
Well,
no,
one of the
no.
reasons was to pay the OPEB. to start
Well, that
making
was,
payments.
yeah, but you're
Okay, so-
making it out to be it was the main reason. It wasn't the main reason.
No, but it was a significant reason. That was, $1 million a year is a significant reason.
Yeah, it was, as I said in March, it was the part of the $3.3 million extra money that we took in.
Okay, so it's 30% of that
Okay.
reason for that tax increase.
Correct.
Okay. Why is this being sprung on us a week before Christmas?
It's not being sprung.
Well, public doesn't know about it because it was, it appeared, I'm surprised it appeared in the paper. I was glad to see it appear in the paper.
So am I.
But these special meetings that occur at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, people were not used to watching this. We heard nothing about this during the December budget process. Did we know about it in November and December when the budget was being discussed?
Yeah, Mr. Lally and I, we come across this, we're looking at the fund balance dropping as we do cash flow projections going not only at the end of the year, but moving through the first quarter of 2015, and not only that, moving through of all going into next year in 2016. All right. Now, as you get closer to the end of the year, you start nipping away and seeing definitely where you're going to be with your fund balance.
But the $600,000 of unanticipated or unbudgeted expenses, you would think at some point during the course of the year, the public would have heard about that.
Well, when we found out in May that our health expenses were going up 27%, what I figured we have in the fund balance coming at the end of this year, yeah, I figured we can absorb that. All right. But then as we moved along here, we had more more expenses with, we hired some additional personnel that wasn't budgeted, plus on top of when we started finding out the refunds that were given in taxes. That all accumulates as you're moving along. Then you get into October and you have your department heads, everybody starts putting the budget together, and then as you're moving along towards the end of the year, you're saying, well, wait, we're not going to have as much money. We're having about as much money in our fund balance now as we did at the end of 13. And we cut it a little bit close, at the end of 13. Our reserves are going down, John.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are going down.
I'm sure they are.
Okay?
I'm aware of that.
And there isn't anybody that's sitting up here on this dais that wants to do or about to do, as far as our whole plan was to fund the OPEB fund.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but my recommendation to council is not to do it right now for 14. We have all intentions of doing it for 15. Okay, but my recommendation is don't transfer this money, all right, because we need that buffer going into the first quarter of the year.
I sit and I watch these meetings, and I listen to them, so I'm certainly not an expert at what goes on that dais, but I listen to the meetings and I'm paying attention to what's going on. And that little bit of blurb that you mentioned last month, or at the last meeting, where you wanted to schedule a special meeting, I was left with the impression that you simply wanted to have a meeting to allow to move $1 million into the OPEB fund. There are a lot of people.
Unbudgeted.
Well, there's a lot of people that are surprised that we don't have this $1 million, and we're only hearing about it on December 19th, after the budget process. So that's one of my concerns, and that's the concern of others.
Well, that's a valid concern.
And why we haven't been, hearing about this sooner, and the spending hasn't slowed down. This year, the spending's been adding new employees. I heard about a new employee today that's being hired, a new department that's, I haven't confirmed it yet, but it looks like we're going to have another secretary position being filled. And,
That's news to us.
well, is it wrong? Is it not true?
I'm tired of it.
Is it not true?
I'm not going to comment on
Okay.
that right now as far as hiring a new secretary. When jobs get posted and everything, whether or not the hiring happens,
Okay.
that will be ratified at the January meeting, John.
Okay, so we're spending more money. We had 2 major tax increases, and we're coming into,
Excuse me, what were the 2 major tax increases?
well, last year and this year.
We didn't have a tax increase this year.
You most certainly voted for a tax increase in
But
2000.
what was the one last year? We had a 1.57 mil increase, period. One tax increase.
Right?
That was
In the
it.
previous year, you had another tax increase.
No, we didn't.
Absolutely did.
Huh?
Yeah, you did.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't us.
It
that
was
was-
this government.
Well, it was your council that did that.
Well,
John,
hold on.
I'm tired of you being here.
Mr.
You're
Wilson-
saying all kind of people, and I'm telling you,
Mr. Wilson,
I see one person here, and you're the only person I see.
Tom.
And I've had it with you.
Tom, he has a right.
His
Tom, there was a tax increase. There was 2 back-to-back
Oh,
tax
bullshit.
increases.
Oh,
Where's the money?
Over 20 years, it was.
Where's the money, Tom?
Don't you think the cost of business is going up too?
Yes, and every year the businesses pay more and more in
Cost of business
taxes.
is going up, cost of union contracts are going up, and it's costing us more money.
Mr. Wilson,
to
I
do
suggested
business.
5 or 6 things during the course of the budget process where this municipality could save some money, and not one of them was taken into consideration, well, not one of them was
How do you
approved.
know? How do you know they weren't taken into?
I corrected myself. They were not,
They were not done, but you don't know if we took them into consideration.
but there, if you look across the board, the places in the last 2 years where taxes have been, where costs have been cut is non-existent. Taxes go up every year in the
wait,
business
wait.
privilege taxes.
2 years in a row.
Business privilege taxes, every time a business does more business, the municipality gets more money. Every time
Oh, isn't that supposed to be that way?
and
That's the way
every
it's
time, well, you're
designed.
saying that they haven't been raised in 20 years.
I'm done. I'm sorry.
John, go back on your.
John, continue on
I'm
with your
surprised,
questioning.
I'm a little disappointed that we're hearing about this 11 days before the end of the year, after the budget process has occurred.
This is a 2014 budget
I
issue.
understand
Yeah,
that.
he knows that.
I understand that, but you would think 2 weeks ago when you folks voted on the budget, that something about moving $1 million or having short, under anticipating $600,000 would have come up in the
We were
conversation.
voting on the 15 budget, not the 14.
I understand that.
Okay.
But in the course of this 15 budget, you would think the topic of revenues and expenses from the previous year, somebody would have said, oh, by the way, to the public, we're going to be short $1 million.
We're not, John, we're not short $1 million, okay? What we're
We spent
doing
more
here.
than $1 million than we thought we were going to
Okay,
spend.
well, we had unbudgeted expenses coming in here, and when we were making out, as I said, when Sean and I were looking at this, when we coagulated the budget process in October, okay, was when the first indication that we thought we were going to have less money at the end of the year, which really isn't the point, even though we're on a budget calendar year. March 31st.
I understand that. I understand
Okay.
cash flows.
All right.
I really do. And
Okay.
if it was just a cash flow situation where you're saying, okay, we're going to hold off moving this until fiscal year 2015 to allow for that buffer, I would understand that, but that's not what's happening. This money's being reallocated, and it's not going to be spent on the OPEB.
Well, there's another item too. Going into the 14 at the end of the year in 13, we had less money in the fund balance than we had anticipated. Okay, and that's because we had money to build the FBI building up there, and that was contained within the fund balance. And that's another reason too. Okay, because you're coming through 14 and you expect, because your fund balance stays stationary when you're going throughout a whole fiscal year. That's stationary number. So if you think that number, depending on how much revenues you take in or expenses, that you give out, is going to depend on where that fund balance is when you come at the end of your fiscal year the following year.
I understand that.
Okay, we had less money in that fund balance because we had FBI money, which we got from the FBI to the tune of $729,000.
Right, and that kind of kept
And-
your
Exactly.
balance a little bit higher.
Well,
I understand
Well,
that.
okay, and that all of a sudden,
It shows up in your books, but in your checking account, it's still there.
it's still there, and that was contained within the fund balance on December 31st, 2013, unbeknownst to me. And that's another reason why coming into the 14, at the end of the 14, that fund balance is going to be a little bit lower.
Okay, well, I just think the public was kind of, pulling something. This is like Harrisburg doing a midnight deal, midnight vote. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the Friday before Christmas. Nobody's paying attention.
John,
They discussed it.
John, I can appreciate you looking at it that way and some people looking at it that way. But this was my recommendation to council. It would be better to do it now than to try and do it, sometime and to have some kind of a cash flow crisis if we all of a sudden had to spend $400,000 on something that's unbeknownst to us right now.
Mr. Little, I
All right.
understand the cash flow situation. I really
Okay.
do. I really do.
But
The problem have is
John,
a
the only
special
thing
meeting on a Friday before Christmas.
Would have been better if we would have had it Thursday night.
No, I think it would have been better if it had been at a public meeting where people were listening and paying attention to this. conversation.
Well, I'll give you that point.
Because
Okay.
had the Times Express not not published this, I don't think many people in Monroeville would have known this was happening.
But they did.
It was
They did.
advertised. It was
But they did,
advertised.
and
They
it was
did.
advertised.
It was
It
advertised.
It was advertised in
And there
that
was a
door.
nice big article in
And
the Times
Mr.
Most
Little-
Express.
people don't read the advertisements in the middle of March.
Okay, but, so then, I'll give you that, but there was the article.
Yeah, there was.
I mean, it's the best.
And it was discussed at our council
John.
meeting on
And it
Tuesday.
It was mentioned. It
Okay.
wasn't
Well,
discussed.
That's the best we could do.
But
for
John, but all kidding aside, there's nobody up here trying to snooker.
We're not
anyone.
trying to,
trying to
we're not
avoid
trying to
being
pull the wool
underhanded.
over it. We're just trying to take care of business
Okay.
as business comes to us and trying to be, as I mentioned to Gideon the other day, trying to be as proactive as we can. I don't want to come to council 6 weeks ago and hit the panic button doing what we're doing now when maybe we don't have to. And I'm not saying right now, as this stands right now, John, we may not have to take money, this full $1 million and use it all, as you're saying. Okay, that is true. You're correct on that. But I want to be on the safe side here. I want to operate on the side of conservancy here. And I think you can appreciate that.
Well, I certainly can appreciate the cash flow situation, but I don't, like I said, first of all, there's $400,000 that hasn't been mentioned specifically in the paper. And number two, I think the public was blindsided, and that was my main point, that the Friday before Christmas, even yesterday's newspaper, nobody read yesterday's newspaper. They were at the mall. So that's my only question.
I read the newspaper.
Okay.
I wasn't
Thank
at the mall.